Hello, this is Sarah V, and today I would like to sew a skirt. It is the beginning of January, and at the end of December, I wallpapered in here and brought over some stuff from my parents' house because I need to clean out my bedroom there. But anyway, as much as I would like to welcome you to my new sewing room, it's not ready yet. But I have some new stuff on the wall. I've wanted to hang that up, but now I finally could. And yeah, the pattern I am using is Simplicity 2701, which I have made on here and I'm actually wearing right now. And I want to make the view 1 with the other tabs. Last time I made this view. The fabric I am using is this blue herringbone cotton flannel from the Joann Plaiditudes collection that I bought a couple years ago. I have a dress made out of it and I wanted to make a jacket with it, but I didn't. So I think this will be more useful to me as a skirt right now. So it should be nice and fast because I don't have to match anything. Just have to cut it out and sew it up. I started things off by laying out my fabric and it was a little rumpled, but not rumpled enough that I felt the need to actually iron it. So there's that. As you can see over on the left hand side, I am missing a chunk, and that's because when I made the dress out of this fabric a couple years back, I needed to harvest a piece for a belt. I was thankfully able to work around it, and either sides of the skirt fit on the top part where it was missing a chunk, so there wasn't an issue. And I had just a smidge of fabric left over. So yeah, not bad at all. I was able to cut everything out. I do not recall whether I put interfacing in the gray waistband when I made the gray skirt, but I did not put any in this, and maybe I should have, because although the fabric is thick, I think even half interfaced would have done it some good. I could always go back and do that, but we'll see if that ever happens or if I leave it as is. I'm sewing this skirt with my original Singer 1591. The one I usually use is made in Canada, and my brothers found it, and it was just they said, oh, but we had to bring it home because they said they were gonna burn it. So that's how I have 2 of those. But anyway, this is quite simple to put together. Right here I am doing the back pieces. I'm sewing those together, the side back and the center back, just because I didn't have to deal with the tabs. And now I am sewing the tabs so that I can assemble the front of the skirt and then sew that together. And these are the darts for the front of the skirt. And apparently I didn't record the back ones because I didn't hit record. It was an accident. But now I am trimming the seam allowance, and I didn't grade this. I just cut it and moved on. Because it's just a tab after all. And I clipped those corners so it would turn better. And it wasn't too bad to do. I don't recommend using scissors to do this, but I did. I am now ironing everything, getting out all those wrinkles that I didn't get out before I cut everything out. Sorry. But I'm not actually sorry, so sorry about that too. And I prefer to press my seams open, especially on a thicker fabric. On a thinner fabrics, I do get away with pressing to one side and serging it together. But for thicker fabrics, I press open and serge separately so that the thickness of the seam allowance doesn't cause frosting on the outside where it lightens from it rubbing there. Kind of like on a jean hem or on any kind of denim where there's a thick chunk of seam allowance underneath and then you end up with that lightening on the outside. I separated my tabs so that whenever I iron it, the best side, the side I want facing the outside, will be ironed better than the other side, just in case any of that seam ends up on either side. I would prefer it to end up on the back and have the front look nice. So yeah. And then I just keep them in that position so whenever I pin them on, I know which side I want to be the outside and I don't have to think as much. I am putting the tabs on now. And I did not look at the instructions for this. So I just kind of had to estimate. I was like, where does 5/8 come in on this point and this point so that whenever it meets up, it's good. And I just pinned those on and moved on. I apologize for the lighting here. I did not realize how different the lighting would be in this corner versus the other corner I usually sew in. So it's a little dark, I'm sorry. And I think there I just sewed the front to the side front on both sides, right where the tabs are at. After I did these seams, I also sewed the side seam tabs on so that whenever I go to sew on the zipper and the other side seam, those tabs will stay in place. And now I am putting the zipper in. I debated whether I wanted to do a lapped zipper or not, but I thought it was the best option considering the color doesn't match perfectly. And I left the right side open so it was easier to get into the zipper while I worked on it. Off camera, I lapped the top over it, and then I realized, wow, I can just flip that over and sew underneath the tab and not have to sew over it. So that was a nice discovery. Maybe it wouldn't have been a discovery if I would have read the instructions, but I did not read the instructions. Then I believe I pinned the other side seam and ran that through the machine. Next, I put the waistband on, and as I went, I serged the seams. And I wish I would have put interfacing on at least half of this waistband, but I didn't. After sewing the sides of my waistband, I flipped the inside under and sewed in the ditch. Whenever I folded it under, I left just a little bit beyond the line of stitching that I sewed it onto so that I could stitch in the ditch and pick up the underside. And I've been doing this a lot with my waistbands because I don't feel like hand sewing it. Now I am just rifling through my tin full of sewing stuff I use a lot, pulling out what I need, like my thimble, course I need to sew on my label because I forgot to sew it on, so I'm sewing it on by hand. And also a needle and some pins. And when I sewed this on by hand, I didn't sew the whole way through, I just sewed through the inside layer. And you can see in this shot where I took out fabric in the back because it was too big, just like the gray one, and since it isn't causing any harm, I just left the fabric in case I ever need to let it out. And this is how I sew my label in if I have forgotten to stitch it in on my machine, or if there's just not a good place to stitch it in by machine and I have to go back and put it on a strange facing or whatnot. I've put them on the inside of button plackets that are on for blouses that button up in the back if there's no neck facing. And now I am putting on the hook. Well, it's the skirt. It's not even the hook part, it's the bar for my skirt hook. And I tried it on first to determine where it needs to go. And then I have my hook, which I will be sewing on, and I like to sew through the front part too, which you'll see in a bit. And I feel like that just keeps it down a little better in the front. But you have to be careful, especially with the ones I have here. I think I got them off of a walk, because if you're not careful, you'll sew right through it and your thread will just pop out and it won't have sewn through it at all. Before sewing the button on, I tacked those tabs down so I wouldn't have to fight with them and so it would lay nice. Then I sewed the button on, and I did not have the stuff to make the covered buttons. I had a refill set and I ended up having to shove the backs of them on with a screwdriver because my nails just weren't putting enough force in to pop it in, but it's in. After this, all I had to do was the hem, and I just hemmed it up 1 inch and called it a day. Overall, I am quite happy with how the skirt turned out. I will say, I wish that little V area where the tabs cross, I wish that was also the opening of a pocket. That wouldn't be that hard to do, I just think it'd be cumbersome if I had done that with the tabs. But I think on another skirt it might be cute to have a little V pocket on a skirt that has gores like this. I also found that I don't have a whole lot of things that go with the blue, but maybe I'll have to make some stuff that goes with the blue. But I like the blue, so. The same as with the gray skirt, it was too big in the back, so I took it in about 2 inches. I did 1 inch on each of the side back seams, and I just left it in there in case I need it, because you can't see it from the outside and it's not causing any distortion in the fabric, I guess. So I just left it in there, and if I need it, I'll have it. I also have left extra in here in case I need to, if I ever have to let it out. So I already have that extra piece of waistband in there, because once again, it's not really hurting anything. It's thick, but it's not like the thickest it could be. But yeah, I really like that pattern. It's quite easy to put together and it's pretty fast. I don't know, sometimes it's just nice to do something that doesn't hurt the brain and ends up being a nice product in the end. That's all I have for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like. If you'd like to see more winter sewing content, please subscribe. And if you'd like to see what I'm up to day to day, feel free to follow me on Instagram at SarahVSewsVintage. Thank you again for watching and see you next time.